And as Andy was telling you earlier, that we're going to be interviewed by Zach from the Southside Weekly. So I'm going to go ahead and turn the mic over to Zach and let him rip away.
Hello, folks. As Gary said, I'm the music editor for the Southside Weekly. My name is Zach Goldhammer. We published an interview with PJ Willis a couple weeks ago. Gary invited me to the studio to do some interviews with the other members of the crew and get some different perspectives on what Dusty's is and what the Soul Reunion's all about, and basically just find out more about what these guys do and why they love it. So, to turn it back to you, Gary, I guess we're just going to start off with asking about how you got into soul music and how this all started.
Well, to be honest with you, soul music has been in my blood since as long as I can interpret what music was. And I mean, it was played around a lot in my household and in the neighborhood. And it goes back as far as listening to, like I said, records that were played in the house, and listening to AM radio, various stations like WLS, WBE, WGRT, of course WVON. That played a lot of a big part of my as far as really interpreting, as far as just music in general, not just soul music. I mean, it's like pop music, rock, and everything else that fell in between. But mainly, like I said, a lot of soul that I was hearing in the neighborhood, and my family bought a lot of records, so that's where a lot of that came from there.
All right, cool. And when we were talking to Andy earlier, he had sort of a liberal definition of what soul was. He was saying anything before 85 encompassed everything from the Grateful Dead to Waylon Jennings. And he said you have a sort of more purist definition, or more to sort of the pure vinyl sound of soul.
Well, I mean, that's one perspective. I mean, I look at it like this. Because various people, they can say a Dusty can be as far as something from 5 to 10 years. And to me, that's still relatively new when you hear it, because it still sounds very current.
Mm.
I like to say Dusty can be anywhere between, say, from the doo-wop era, from the 50s, the Stax and the Motown from the 60s, a lot of the Chicago music that was right here from the 60s, from the OK, the Chess, the Curtom, and even some of the smaller labels, and going from the late 60s, like the Sly and the Family Stone era, of course James Brown, Stax, and in the 70s, a little bit of everything. But as far as what we do here at HPK, it goes as far as back as, I would say, the Dusty Party show itself, because the show actually was started by two gentlemen who now pretty much runs Dusty Groove, and that was Rick and JP. They were the ones who actually really started the Dusty Party, and I came along in 98 when they was like pretty much leaving, and I kind of took from what they were doing and try to keep it going, because what they were doing, they were pretty much playing music just mainly from the 60s and 70s. I kind of opened up the 80s just to be a little bit fair, because I could I could have kept it the same format as 60s and 70s, but I figured, well, I don't want to completely shut out the 80s, even though there's a few things from the 80s I really don't like, because you can tell the music started changing quite a bit. So, I admit, I'm very strict and very pure when it comes to 80s stuff, because it's like certain things where I know it's like, because my big problem with the 80s is the fact that I can tell that the music definitely changed, because you got away from actual live bands, and what was being replaced was computers and synthesizers and drum machines. And that's fine in its own, way of certain things, but it takes away from the real true musician. And you start hearing a lot of that in the music, and it just started sounding very manufactured. It didn't sound real. So therefore, I'm really strict when it comes to 80s stuff. So it's like, I say 85 is really much a cutoff point. Anything past that, I'm like, I let the commercial radios deal with that, because they pretty much play that much better than we do. So we try to keep it pure.
Cool. And then Andy was saying that he was sort of a Stax guy to start off, and then you sort of pushed him to expand his boundaries.
Yeah, because the thing is, I mean, not to take anything away from Stax. I mean, Stax is some great music.
Yeah.
But the thing is, with the Dusty Party, we try to open up the wide range. We don't want to just be pigeonholed in just one particular direction, because it could be easy for me to say, even though I'm from Chicago, I'm just playing nothing but Chicago music. But at the same time, there's a lot of great music from different eras and different parts of the globe. So I was like, I can't really be strict as far as just saying just play one particular style of music, like say play just Motown or play Philadelphia International stuff or whatever. Because I mean, there was a lot of great music from all those eras. So we try to incorporate all of that as well as different genres, as far as just not just soul music. We might hear some blues, you might hear some gospel, you might hear some pop, you might hear some rock, you might hear a little bit of everything, because that was pretty much what I was exposed to. And people who I would say that can remember how radio used to be, they used to hear that. And you don't hear that anymore, because it's pretty much so controlled. It's like everything is pretty much one direction. It's like people are scared to go a little bit to the left, a little bit to the right, and it didn't used to be that way. So that's pretty much what we try to do here. We try to throw a little bit of everything, and it pretty much works out. And I'm quite sure from the listeners that support what we do, they understand where we're coming from, and we try to pretty much keep it in that perspective and not go too far where we lose them.
Cool. And then when we were talking before, you were sort of talking about the history of WHPK and all these great DJs who came before you, particularly Richard Piggy.
Yes.
Can you talk about a little bit about his influence and other people influenced you about how to do broadcasting on the air?
To be honest with you, what we do here on Thursday nights, we pretty much really owe it to Richard, because he came here in '81, and it was in the process of he was leaving a commercial station on the AM side. It was WJPC, and he wanted to do what he was doing here, and they kind of didn't give him the freedom, so that's why he left, came here, and he was pretty much building what he was later to do over at GCI. So he was here for like about, I would say, just a little bit over a year, and in that year's time, it was a pleasure knowing that a legend that I've heard so many, for so long, came here, even though he was here for just a short time. But to go ahead and take what little bit that he was able to do here and go ahead and build it up to a much bigger audience, it was amazing. Then I finally had a chance to actually really meet him, and we talked, and he had an interest as far as coming back here. And I was like very ecstatic. I was like, this would be so great to have Richard come back to HPK. And it was something that we was definitely working on. We was just that close, and I just say for the short time that I did get a chance to meet him, spend time with him and everything, it was a great learning experience. He showed me a lot. He talked to me, and like I said, we shared a lot of knowledge and concepts and things like that nature. And it was, like I said, it was a great experience. Like I said, it would have been so great if we could have just had him here.
Can you explain a little bit about what he was doing that was so unique and so special? People that don't know.
He had his own style, and the thing is, a style that a lot of people pretty much gravitate to, because he was like a music encyclopedia. He knew just about anything, everything. He was a great production person. He did some really great commercials. He did great drops. It was just so much that he did. Plus, like I said, he was a music person as well, because a lot of people fail to realize that he was a songwriter. Yeah. He was a musician. He had some songs that did fairly well here in Chicago. But as far as the jingles that he did for a lot of commercials here, I mean, Funtown, Ember's Furniture commercial, Rib Supreme, so much. I mean, those are like classics. So I mean, and some of those things you can find on YouTube just to hear just the genius of what Richard put together. So I mean, like I said, he's a legend, and we try to keep that tradition going here, because PJ, like I said, he could tell you, he spent a lot of great time with him as well. So like I said, we pretty much learned and kind of just keep the great things that he was able to do on radio. We try to keep it alive here on Thursdays.
It's funny that you describe him as a walking encyclopedia. That's the exact term that Andy used to describe PJ. Would you say PJ is sort of carrying on the tradition of Richard Piggy?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes. Most definitely.
And are you guys sort of self-consciously modeling yourselves off after those older shows, do you think? Or?
To some degree, because if you really listen to, because there are, shows similar to this on the internet you can listen to, and they have their own different style of, how they do things. But the thing is, I'll say, as far as just Chicago, we just have a certain way of how we interpret things. And it's pretty much, if you listen to a lot of Chicago radio, it's automatically in your blood. You just cannot shake it away. So it's like you're automatically influenced by what you grew up listening to. And especially for people like Richard McGee or somebody like a Herb Kent.
Yeah.
You know, those guys, I mean, like I said, they're legend legends. I mean, they're living legends. So it's like you hear them so much, it's like I said, it's a part of you. So it's just pretty much just kind of keep what they're doing and kind of like put our own little take on it at the same time.
And can you talk a little bit about how WHPK is sort of unique and what sort of unique things go on this station? We've talked a lot about different people here, like Eli Paperboy Reed, who's sort of carrying on the soul tradition.
Right. Well, basically, the history of HPK for a lot of people that have listened to the station for a long period of time, because one thing I can say is this: I stumbled across the station by accident back in like 1978. It was one time, I guess it was on a weekend, where I was a little bored of hearing what the commercial station was doing, and someone told me, just go ahead and flick, to the left side down, because for some strange reason, I don't know what it is, we are so pigeonholed that we're afraid to go ahead and turn to the left side down. It's like for some reason, it's forbidden. Like, no, don't do that. So I just did it one time, and I was like hearing a lot of interesting things. I was like, okay, HPK. I was like, And then I found out that the station was close by, so I think, started becoming an avid listener to the station. And this was back during a time when the station wasn't even 24 hours. It used to go off at midnight. So that just goes to show you how long to go. So I came a member of HBK in 1980. And this was still during a time when we weren't even 24 hours at the time. We were still shutting down at midnight. And then somehow we had enough manpower to keep the station going 24/7. And we were still operating 10 watts at the time. And then I'll say about 84, that's when we were able to go ahead and increase our wires to 100 watts. And that was pretty much saying something back then, because at least 100 watts can go a lot further than 10 watts. 10 watts only like, just a few blocks down the street. But 100 watts, can cover a little bit more territory. But to get back to what you were saying, what makes HBK so unique, and still to this day, is the fact of the personalities that we have here, both of students and non-students, and the fact that we have such a wide genre of type of programs we have here, from world music to the public affair programs, to shows like like Dusty Party, Arkansas Red, the jazz shows that are here like 6 days a week, and the rock shows. I mean, everything. So it's like, it's a little bit of everything for your musical taste, whatever style of music that you like. We pretty much have it here. So it's something for everybody.
Cool. And then, speaking of different personalities, can you talk a little bit about how you met PJ and Andy, and what the relationship between you guys is?
Well, PJ, I've known PJ for a long period of time. I've known him when he was working at another college radio station. I can say it, KKC. I knew him then. We kind of lost contact, and how I rediscovered PJ was the fact that when Richard had passed away, we were both members on this particular music site online, and I saw that he had posted something about Richard. So I was like, the first thing came to mind was the fact, okay, if I can't get Richard here, at least I can get somebody that's close enough that has just as much as knowledge as Richard. So I reached out to PJ, and it was during a time when PJ was just doing gospel music. He really wasn't doing any Dusties and everything. So I reached out to him, and I asked him, would he be interested in coming to HBK? So he was like, let me think about it. I said, well, hey, take all the time you need. And I said, if you want to do it, I showed him exactly how everything operates. I said, now, it's up to you. I said, I'm not going to pressure you. If you want to do it, just let me know. He thought about it, and he was like, you know what, I'm going to go ahead and give it a shot. And I think that's probably one of the best things that I could have done, was to go ahead and have PJ come on board the Dusty's Party, and it's been a success ever since. With Andy, was very unique because I received an email through one of the station managers saying that there was a gentleman that was interested in doing a Dusty show. So I had met with Andy, and he had a different concept of how he wanted to do the show. And I was like, I said, well, well, your concept is fine. I said, but the thing is, this is how the show pretty much is structured. So we do, a 3-hour show. We pretty much play, wide variety of music and everything. And that's when he was telling me about that he likes Stax and everything. I said, Stax is great. I said, but can you know anything other than Stax music? I said, just not to say anything was bad about Stax, but just to kind of broaden your horizon, because like I said earlier, that's what the show is pretty much about. It's like pretty much playing a little bit of everything. So he didn't get offended. He's like, sure. So what really gravitated me about Andy was the fact that he pretty much learned this whole board. Like, and I was saying to myself, I'm like, I don't need to be here. I mean, I was right here for like 15 minutes. I sat back. I was like, you know what? I said, man, you got it. I said, if you have any problems, I said, call me. But from what I can see right now, you got this. And he's been a great part of being here on Thursday Night Dusty Party. Like I say, he has a bubbling personality. Like I say, he plays great music. Matter of fact, our style of music is almost the same. Because I understand exactly where he's coming from. And he'll throw some things at me when I'm like, I had to kind of like call him and say, hey, man, what is that? Like, I don't know what this song is, but it's great, though. And like I say, and it works. And the thing is, there's one other person that's not here also, and I guess I can be fair and say King George. He's another member of the Thursday Night Dusty Party. So there's 4 of us here. And I think with the 4 of us, we try to bring something unique and try to keep the tradition of what Dusty music should be, not just in Chicago, but by us being online for everybody that can listen to us. This is just our way of showing you, hey, this is what we play. And we try to do something totally different from commercial radio, because commercial radio, yeah, they had their own, Dusty type show, but they play the same things all the time. And we try to get away from that, because we figured if you really like music, go ahead and expand your horizon mentally as far as hearing the same things that you hear all the time, because you can easily get brainwashed. And we try not to brainwash. You try to go ahead and play those songs that you probably haven't heard in a long time, or songs that you might never heard before, or even artists you might never heard before, and kind of give you that extra push to go ahead and, if you want to find out more about the artist, go ahead and do your research and find out more about that artist, get their music, and perhaps you can become a fan of that artist and everything.
Cool. Do you guys ever get into fights about anything, about sort of definitions of soul, or
no? Because the thing is, it's pretty much self-explanatory. They understand exactly where we're coming from as far as just playing music from the 60s, 70s, and 80s. And I don't think there's no problem with that. If somebody wants to go ahead and make a small exception, which very rarely happens, they're welcome to do that. But we pretty much try to keep it in that same format, because, again, you can hear those other styles from commercial radio. They play that, very well and everything, but I just think it's kind of misleading when you say somebody like, say, trying to think of somebody that's kind of current. They might have something like, say, a couple of years ago, and call it Dusty. I'm like, no, I disagree. But for those that want to, say that there's more power to them, but I figure we'll let them go ahead and do what they do best, and we do what we do best, and we try to just keep it traditional.
Cool, man. Well, I'll let you get back to the music, but.
Okay.